Well, good morning, Texoma. It's Zach here, and it is a football season here in Texoma. Yes, we are so excited to once again be the official home of Denison Yellow Jacket football. And, I think there's a big game coming up here in a couple of weeks, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. But I want to introduce the folks that we have on our live stream with us today. We have the new football coach with the Denison Yellow Jackets. We got Coach Brent Whitson, who is here with us this morning. Good morning, Coach. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Excited.
Yes, we're excited too. And then we also got this guy here with us that everybody knows because we hear him on Friday nights on Katy Country. It's Mr. Lynn Burkhead. And Lynn, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going great. I know Jay Lindley is going to be watching, so sting him. But it's going great. You mentioned we got a big game coming up. I hadn't heard that, but I do know there's a big game in December, and it's 95 miles away from Munson Stadium.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Now, Coach, I will be the first to say that when it comes to high school football, I didn't really play a lot of it. I was in the band, and I was the one yelling and screaming and cheering. As you could tell, it's kind of how the whole radio thing came about. So I'll leave all the X's and O's talk to Lynn. But I got to ask you, at your previous stop, was it one of those things to where you kind of heard about the Sherman and Denison rivalry? I mean, it's the oldest high school football rivalry in the state of Texas. So is it something that you kind of saw from way over there and was like, man, that's incredible?
Well, I was raised with the high school, junior high and high school in Ada, Oklahoma, and we were on the same TV market as you guys. So yeah, I've heard about the Battle of the Axe since I was 10, 11 years old on KXI and K10. So I've known about this rivalry, and if you're in our business, you know about Sherman Denison.
Yeah, it's always fun. And Coach, I don't know if you've experienced this yet, talking to folks in the Denison area, but isn't it just great to hear some of the stories about the husband that went to Denison and he married somebody that went to Sherman, and just the houses being divided for at least 1 week.
Yeah, there's a lot of house divideds here. I think the great thing I've seen is in driving through both downtown, Sherman and Denison, that it seems like it's always football season. There's always shoe polish on the windows. There's also always support for kids. And that's what you look for when you do what I do.
Yeah, for sure. And, of course, we're going to have a Yellow Jacket football all season long on 93.1 Katy Country. Lynn Burkhead, of course, we all know him. He is the voice of the Yellow Jackets. And remember, not only can you listen to the games on the radio, we call it nowadays the old school way, but you can listen on the radio, but also up on our website, 931kmkt.com. That is really the easiest way to listen to the games. If you don't live in the area and you want to maybe send a link over to, Aunt Edna, who lives like in Wisconsin or something. So that way she can hear the games as well. But Lynn, I'm going to let you take it from here, man. I know you got a lot of questions, and Coach, it's good to have you in Denison, sir.
Thank you, Zach.
Zach, why don't you tell everybody you can also tune in. We've got listeners in Florida, ex-Yellow Jackets, New York, California, guys that played here all over the United States on Friday night. And so if you can't do it old school like I like to do it, you can do what? The TuneIn app, iHeartRadio, what else?
Yeah, TuneIn, iHeart, the Odyssey app, and of course you can tell Alexa and Siri to simply play 93.1 Katy Country, and it'll pop up right there on your iPhone if you got an iPhone, or on your Alexa device. So it's really, really easy. I prefer the website just because you can just log into the website and the play button's right at the top. But I also work here at the radio station, so I'm selfish and like people to go to our website. So, but yeah, there's many ways to listen to Katy Country and to hear Yellow Jacket football in the fall.
So, Coach, do you think if I said, Alexa, take me to the team that's going to beat the Sherman Bearcats, would she take me to 93.1?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it would come up yellow and black.
Very good. Very good. Well, Brent, got to know you when you came here back. I believe you were introduced to the town and to the school and to everyone around Texoma on March the 1st. And it was such a great pleasure to get to know you over the last several weeks and months. And, I know that there's a lot of great football history here. There's been a lot of great players. There's been a lot of great plays. There's been some epic games, some big playoff wins, a state title, some near misses. But, you know, really the thing that drives this whole Yellow Jacket engine, it's the fans. There are nothing but super fans here, from Superfan Buddy, whom you met, to a lot of folks around town like Mayor Janet Gott, Robert Crawley, ex-Mayor Ronnie Cole, also Tom Redwine, so many people, myself included, who bleed black and gold. What do you think of D-Town?
Well, they wake up excited about Jacket football and really about Jacket kids. I mean, I think that's the thing that I'm learning more about. It's obvious people are going to want to talk to me about the football program, but the more I get out, they just want to talk about Denison High School and Denison schools in the whole. And that's really good for me to know as the athletic director. Of course, we're going to feed that monster that is Jacket football. You know, that's the easy part of this job, to be quite honest with you. Getting excellence in everything and chasing those goals that Dr. Scott sets for us. That's job one. Well,
you know, your predecessor, Chad Rogers, kind of surprised a lot of folks. You know, every last year, a playoff trip, 7-win season, another victory over the arch rival, and a lot of great players coming back. 42 lettermen, 7 defensive starters, 8 offensive starters, including 4-star running back Jadarian Price, and all of a sudden, Chad Rogers is departing for Tioga High School. And when he left, a broadcasting buddy of mine for a team down south of here that shall remain nameless, Chad Rowland, he sent me a text and he said, hey, what is going on in Yellow Jacket country? What's wrong in Denison? And I texted him back. And by the way, I returned the favor with my own text about a month later when the Sherman head coach, J.D. Martinez, left and went to Bridgeport. But I texted him back and I said, Chad, nothing's wrong in Denison. Nothing is wrong at all. So you tell me, what's right in Denison that made you want to come here?
Well, first off, community. Second, the table that Chad Rogers left set. That there's always a reason a job's open, and I'm in what now 4 or 5 months, and I still haven't figured out what that is. This is a great job. This is a great community. Inherited a great bunch of kids. Quite honestly, and I haven't talked to Chad because he's got a job to do, I've got a job to do, but the 2 happiest people in the whole deal are Brent Whitson at Denison and Chad Rogers at Tioga. So that's the way it ought to work, quite honestly. You go and do what you want to do. I think coaches have a lifespan in communities and in programs. And the great part for that was Chad made that decision. Same thing at South Grand Prairie. I had a lifespan there, and I made the decision that I wanted to come and be a part of a community. I wanted that strong administration we have here. And I wanted people that were crazy about Jacket football. So it's worked out for the Whitsons pretty well.
Well, I've done. I'm a guy that never likes to leave an I dotted, or undotted, or a T uncrossed, and so I did a lot of research on Brent Whitson when you were named the head football coach, the 24th known head football coach in Denison history, a program that dates back to 1901. There were some coaches back in the early 1900s. We're not sure who they were, so you're the 24th known head coach in the program's history. But I found out that your dad, Lewis Whitson, he was the head football coach back in the 60s, around the time I was born, a few years after you were born, that he was the head football coach for the Broncos down at Denton High School. And he actually coached a game against the Yellow Jackets at Munson Stadium. And one of the first people you called, I think, when you got the job here in D-Town was your dad, Lewis, up in the Ardmore area. And you told him, hey, Dad, I got the Yellow Jacket job. And I laughed when I heard his response. He was pretty excited and fired up. You got the job here, right?
You bet. For public consumption, he said, "Son, that's a heck of a job." And Dad doesn't say a whole lot of things anymore, but he got a little grin out of him, and he got him a jacket, shirt, and hat, and he's set to go. But when you grow up in football like I have, and you look at community destination type jobs, and that's what this is, and that was the root of my dad's comment. If you're going to go get one, if you're going to leave where you are, which was a pretty good job, Lynn. When you're going to leave something like that, you better go get something better, and I did.
Let's talk about what you left. You had really carved out a niche in South Grand Prairie, down there in the southern end of the Metroplex. You weren't too far from Jerry World and Globe Life Field and all of those great places. And you were part of your own rivalry with Grand Prairie High School. You were in a tremendous football district with, over the years, your district mates. I think 2013. You guys finished 4th, and that's completely understandable behind 16-0 state champion DeSoto and 2 quarterfinalists out of the same district in Duncanville and Cedar Hill. But you did leave a lot of people that you loved behind. You left kids. I watched your Twitter account. You're constantly responding to some of your ex-players and places they've gone on and done. Your wife, Lisa, she was the teacher of the year last year for the Grand Prairie ISD. What was it that you left, and was it hard to do that?
It's always hard to leave kids. Again, I keep referring to my dad because that's who taught me what I know in coaching. But Dad always told me there's kids at the other end of that road also. So you can't make a decision based upon who you're leaving. I think one of the hardest things to do was the relationships that we had built inside of South Grand Prairie High School. We had a tremendous faculty that supported us, great principal that was only his second year of the job, but that I'd worked with throughout my 10 years there. And we made tremendous progress in rebuilding a program that had quite honestly kind of fallen into a little bit disarray. Still great players, but it needed to be a program again. And it took us a while to do that. When you get in the playoffs in Region 1, in 6A, in the state of Texas, we lost in our 7 straight playoff games. We lost to Euless Trinity, to Allen, to Duncanville twice, lost to Belton squad that was Bob Shipley's last high school football team. We just, we never played any chumps. We literally in 10 years never played anybody that you got off the bus and said, let's go see how bad we can beat these guys. You came off and you scratched and clawed. And that in and of itself is exciting, and that's fulfilling as a coach. So there really wasn't a football reason to leave South Grand Prairie. And so, I guess any other time I would miss that. But when you come here, you don't miss anything. Because you're fulfilled by what this community does, the type of kids we inherited, the way the program's been built over time. When you start looking at just the last 3 coaches before me, when you just look at that, what the expectations are and what you're getting into.
Well, you left some great players behind. I think last year 6 players from South Grand Prairie went on to play college football somewhere. And a couple of years ago, or last year, you actually saw one of your former players, Jeffrey Okuda, former Ohio State Buckeye star, become the number 3 pick in the NFL draft. Yeah. And so you certainly know how to coach outstanding players. And there's just been an endless stream of those here in Denison. It started under Marty Criswell, continued under Bob Brown, and then Cody White, and then your predecessor, Chad Rogers. But you said something interesting when you came, and it really, my eyebrows kind of raised. I don't have any hair, so everybody saw my eyebrows raised. You said that you had not watched any film on any of the players in Denison prior to taking the job, that you didn't want to take a job because of who might be here or who might not be here. You thought that was the wrong reason to do that, and I really respect that. And so I want to ask you now, knowing that you coached some of the best players in high school football in recent years, what do you think of the players in Denison now? What do you think of your team?
Well, I said earlier, Chad Rogers set a really good table. This senior class is special at any level. I honestly believe that this football team that I've inherited here would go and would make the playoffs in the 6A district that I left at South Grand Prairie. There's enough talent there for that. There's also a tremendous sophomore class and great players in the junior class, a freshman class coming in that really makes you sit up tall in your chair because they're going to do great things over their 4 years. I now have watched a video of these football players in last year's ball games, and again, a whole different level of excitement gets when you got to see them perform. But more to the point, we had 11 excellent spring practices, and we're a few days into getting the fall started.
So one of the first tasks that you had, besides getting to meet your players, and you had the luxury of really 3 months to be able to do that last year in March, April, and May before graduation. One of your first jobs, though, aside from meeting the players, you had to get your coaching staff set. And that's always difficult when a new guy comes in. There's some old guys that didn't go to Tioga, and 1 or 2 of those decided to go on to other things. You've got a staff that's a mixture of guys that have been around here a few years, many of them hometown heroes in their own high school football careers who went on to play college football in various places. And then you brought some very exciting coaching talent in various places. You've got an interesting staff. So how important was it to select the right staff, and how have you guys gelled in the months that have followed?
Well, I'll tell you how important it is that I think I was introduced here on a Friday, March the 5th, and Monday, March the 8th was the beginning of spring break here. And I asked the existing coaching staff to give me 1 hour out of that spring break on Monday and Tuesday. And I sat here in this office on the other side of this desk and visited with every football coach from the 7th grade up for an hour over 2 days, from 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening, and went out and had lunch with one of the preceding staff coaches. So I worked straight through 2 days in a row. We didn't get on the board and draw plays. We just got to know each other because I had to make decisions about who was going to be a part of this staff. And that decision comes down to classroom teachers and what kind of men they are. And at the end of the day, there wasn't anybody we asked to leave this staff. I'm very fortunate right now that I was able to bring 4 of my guys with me from South Grand Prairie. Our offensive coordinator, Brent Whitson, brought Ronnie Mullins, Clint Burns, and Dan Kurtenbach, who were on my staff. Dan Kurtenbach's been with me basically since 2000. You have to have guys that are known commodities. But in those hour-long chats, I didn't just hire staff. I made some friends. I found some guys that I knew were going to buy in immediately. And you know what I hated about that, Lynn? It's natural in a transition is that some of those guys were, I don't know what the right word is, but fearful a little bit. They were very, very nervous about what their job security was. And the very first thing I told every one of those guys is I'm not here to lop anybody's heads off. I'm here to assess what kind of person you are. And so that changed the mood of those discussions. It went from having to impress the new head coach and athletic director with my football acumen, my knowledge, to just let's show this guy who I am. And as soon as we got into that, Todd Wallace is a great example, our defensive coordinator. Todd had applied for the job, and everybody has this assumption, well, if you apply for the job, you're not going to stay. Well, within 5 minutes of that conversation, I knew I wanted Todd Wallace to stay. I knew I wanted him to be defensive coordinator because I could see what kind of father he was, what kind of husband he was, and how much he loved these kids. And so that was the tenor of all those conversations. Very easy to build this staff because I inherited a really good one.
Yeah, there were some good men here, and there's been several more good men added, and it's going to be fun to see what all happens. You've said a number of times to me, and I've heard you in some other settings say the same thing, that, yeah, there's a lot of change here. And, that's a little bit disconcerting to folks in Denison because really over time, there hasn't been a lot of change. Marty Criswell came to town in 1981, and since that time, you're now the 5th head coach. That's a long time to only have 5 head coaches. And Bob Brown, he took the baton from Marty Criswell and raised the bar even higher. Cody White, he gave Denison fans the greatest game maybe in Denison history, the epic comeback win down 19 points with 9 minutes to play against Sherman in 2007 for a 1-point victory at the end with Jordan Taylor, DJ Jones. And then Chad Rogers put his stamp on this program and several playoff trips and a long run of success against the guys down south of here. So change is not something Denison fans are particularly used to. So tell us, what is going to change here? What's the offense going to look like? What's the defense going to look like?
Well, defensively, you'll see a lot of things you recognize because again, Todd Wallace remained our defensive coordinator, and our defensive staff, I did add 2 guys, but they were true additions in areas where I wanted some detail that I was used to. Offensively, we'll be remarkably different. We are Brian Wilson has a great background. Matter of fact, he's good enough that I fired myself as the play caller 2 years ago at South Grand Prairie to take advantage of some wide receiver talent. We sent 3 wide receivers to Division I football at the FBS level last year, and I wanted somebody who was concentrated in that area in the RPO game and some things beyond the quick game and throwing the football. And give Brian license to do that. But we'll be different. Now, 24 is going to touch football. I'm not a genius, but I do know that when you've got a talent like JD, you need to be able to give him. But the great thing for him is that pre-snap, it'll never be decided that he's getting the football. We're going to take what they give us. We're blessed with a tremendous high school quarterback. I think the most undervalued, under-recruited football player in the state of Texas is Caleb Heaver. And the what we're going to do offensively is going to get that revealed. And so that'll be the differences. I think there are going to be other slight differences. I don't do things like my predecessor or anybody here. But I think people want that because they want Brent Whitson to be Brent Whitson. And football teams, whether you intentionally do it or not, are a reflection of leadership. And so, I've never had an offensive line coach that didn't spit when he talked. So I want offensive linemen that are like that. I've never had a defensive coordinator who didn't turn red when he got upset. Well, I want defensive players that are like that. And I've never had an offensive football team that wasn't a reflection of what their offensive, their coordinator was. And Brian's excitable and intelligent. So I think we'll play that kind of football.
So you chose to go through spring football, and I've been around here a long time, and that means I'm getting kind of old in the tooth, so to speak. And I've seen a lot of football since started under Coach Criswell all the way to now. And spring football is not something that has been done very often in Denison over the years. It was done a little bit back in the 80s and the 90s, but really for the last 20 years or so, there hasn't been much spring football. You chose to do that. You mentioned 11 practices, but you had to give up a week of fall practice. You're now in your first full week of fall practice. So what's the trade-off worth it in your mind?
Absolutely. It's really just an exercise in math. It's just numbers of hours. And we can go out there for 11. You can go 18 practices, which is ridiculous. You don't have time to do that. And it's not good for kids' bodies. And we have other things we need to do. We've got to continue our strength work. We're still trying to, see what just motor skills kids have. And you do that all the way through the end of May. But we took those 11 practices, put shoulder pads and gear on, ran into each other. We got a real live show of what our kids could do and what you give up for that with what NCAA rules and UIL rules that hamstrung you so much in the fall with the, you can't go 2 days in a row. If you go 3 hours, they put so many rules into the fall that I went 11 practices for 6 practices. Well, that's, again, my CPA background is way back there, but I can do that math. So our whole deal is break even is if we get over 10 practices in the spring, we're always going to do spring football.
Yeah.
And we got weathered out. Go ahead. We got weathered out, but of a couple practices, but we were very, very happy with how spring went.
Well, you mentioned your CPA background. A lot of Yellow Jacket fans may not know that. Your degree is in accounting, and you actually were a CPA and did that for several years. You started coaching, took a few years off, and then came back to coaching. So I've never met a head football coach that was a licensed CPA until now. So I'm sure you're –
I've got that certificate way up in a closet someplace. Nobody wants me to drag that out, I promise you. But it was a life decision my wife and I made that I was going to go do that, and went and did it and chased money for a while. And in 1996, got an opportunity to get back in full time, and I jumped at it.
Yeah, it didn't take long for you to find out you'd made the right decision. There was a state championship when you were at Shawnee in Oklahoma. You went to the largest school in Oklahoma after that, Broken Arrow, and then made the journey south to Texas, back to where you were born. So a couple of last things. We got just a handful of minutes left. So obviously, and as my friend Jay Lindley, the voice of the Sherman Bearcats, said in his interview, this interview with Coach Corey Kane, the new head coach at Sherman, who is an acquaintance of yours, friend of yours, and you've encountered him on the gridiron a couple of times.
Great hire, by the way.
Yeah, there's going to be some epic battles between the two of you, I think, down through the years. But he mentioned the elephant in the room, the 123rd Battle of the Axe between Denison and Sherman, and obviously the Yellow Jackets have had the upper hand for a few years. They've enjoyed that. Obviously, the folks down south, they're very hungry to make that go away and to get that trophy back in their possession. It is a game that I've always said, everybody on the coaching staff, every player that moves here, you've got to go through it one time before you fully understand what the game is and the impact. Every year when we start our broadcast off on 93.1, I say the same thing. The atmosphere is so electric. The mood is so tense. The stakes are so high in a single town that's really two towns separated by an imaginary line. I wish every kid in the state of Texas that ever suits up to play high school football could play in a game like this. It is really a special contest. I want to ask you, what are you going to be thinking when you walk out of that locker room and you walk onto that field on August 27th?
Well, I'm excited to experience that. I've been in a lot of big football games. Played against a lot of really, really good football teams that were very proud of what they do. I don't think I've done anything that just from a standpoint of that night has measured up to the Battle of the Axe, but I don't know. I've said it too many times, and I know Corey probably said the same thing. It's the most important ball game on our schedule right now because it's the next one. And I will say the exact same thing on Saturday morning, August 28th, that Fort Worth Brewer is the most important ball game on our schedule because it's the next one. I think you can get so myopic and so focused on one single ball game that it costs you in the long run. And the thing that you can't do, whether you're Sherman or Denison, if it goes bad for you on that first one, you can't let that beat you the next week. And so, we're going to get ready for that ball game because it's the next one. And we want to keep that trophy as bad as anybody in town does. But at the end of the day, it's a ball game on the way to where we hope to get in December. And so, honestly, Lynn, I don't know what I'm going to feel like when I walk out there. I want to puke every time I walk out there on the first Friday night anyway, because that's the kind of stomach and that's the kind of intensity I carry. But it's I wake up thinking about it at night right now because I can't wait for that opportunity.
Two last questions. Number one, the other elephant in the room. It's been a really crazy collection of months since March 2020. COVID-19, early this year kind of thought we'd have a regular season and wouldn't have to even think about it again. Unfortunately, the news headlines suggest otherwise. I know your team at South Grand Prairie was very much affected last year, had a couple of games that you missed. How do we get through another season in the pandemic?
Well, you do it the right way. And we did it the right way at South Grand Prairie. We had to cancel we tried to play Grand Prairie twice, and they kept having cases. And so, you get up to that point, and one of them was on Thursday morning. We found out the other one, I made them make a decision early in the week because you don't want to waste your time. You just do things the right way. Take kids. If kids are hungry and want to play bad enough, they'll do anything you ask them to do. And if it's putting a gaiter on and covering your face or wearing a mask in classroom, if they want to play bad enough, and ours are desperately hungry. So, yeah, you know what? I'm scared to death that September 2021 is not going to be much different than September 2020. But you know how much control I have over that. If you want a really good lesson in how much control anybody has over it, go down to Austin, Texas right now and sit in Greg Abbott's office, and then go into Dallas, Texas, and sit in Clay Jenkins' office, and you realize that really nobody has any control over it. We just have to follow directions and try to get this thing behind us.
Well, I'm with you. I never thought I'd wear this thing again, but
we went digging in the Tupperware last night to find ours. So
if I have to do it to see us get through a season again and play some games, then that's what we'll do. Last question. I know one of my favorite parts of you coming here is the story of where you're living right now. And I want to give, I don't want to tell too much of that, but you guys, you left Grand Prairie, you're building a house here in the Texomaland area, and that's going to take some time to get done. So in the meantime, you're living in one of the apartment lofts in downtown Denison. You guys are kind of celebrities down there. You walk your dog every night down Main Street. I love it. People wave at you. Hey, Coach, how you doing? How do you and Lisa love being downtown Denison celebrities?
It's wonderful, to be honestly. I don't know about the celebrity part. I keep thinking the Brent Whitson celebrity tour is going to get over with here pretty soon. But one of the great things about Denison is that people really are interested, and they do want to, shake your hand and say hi. But downtown is wonderful, and if you really want to get to know where you live, especially from the standpoint of that part of town, you need to be there, and we don't have any choice. And my little 11-year-old buddy Coleman, my dog. He needs to get out from time to time, so we stick his little purple leash on him, and we have covered every square foot of downtown all the way over, at the stadium, way back north up to Morton Street and east and west and over to Katy Depot. It's a great place, and I hope Denison people all know what a treasure it is, and but we're enjoying it. It's a special time, and it's neat living there because there's a back end to it. I'm not going to be there for the next 20 years. I'm going to finally get to move into a house eventually.
Well, we have a tradition in Denison, the players going down touchdown alley to the stadium, before the game. And I think Coleman ought to lead the way. He ought to lead the procession.
He might need to be out front. He'd be the ferocious animal everybody wants to see.
The Jackets have their own mascot. They have Coleman.
That's right.
All right. Anything you might want to say to Yellow Jacket fans before we let
come out, be loud, get there early. When we go down to Sherman here in a couple of weeks, you better get there early because Highway 75 is a mess, and we fully expect all the tail ends and seats that they'll allow us to have to be there and be loud and be wearing the right colors.
Yeah, Zac has personally arranged that. He's trying to make the team bus about a quarter late to that game.
Yeah,
and, not going to work, Zac.
I tell you what, we just decided in Sherman that we were just going to do everything all at once. So that's what's happening.
Right. That's what it looks like.
Now, Coach, before we let you go, a couple of things. Number one, you got to check out the Katy Trail. My family and I, we went over to the Katy Trail over at Waterloo, and we were walking on that. And
we've done that. We've done that. It's awesome.
The boys had the scooters or whatever, and I did it for just a little bit, and then I was like, oh, this looks like a broken wrist waiting to happen. Yeah. So I let the 9-year-old and the 6-year-old do that. But then also I got to ask you, one of my best buddies, he's on the Texoma Back the Badge Foundation with me, is Chief Mike Gudgel. Now,
very pretty guy.
Yeah, did you know him before you got up here?
We were acquainted. He was on the force and was he kind of led a bunch of detectives. He had done a bunch of things during my 10 years there. I was unaware that he had taken this job. And when I took the job, our student resource officer, who became a great friend there at South Grand Prairie, came up to me and said, hey, man, the police chief up there is a warrior. And so one of the first people I got to see when I came here was Mike. And I sit with him at Rotary from time to time on Thursdays. What a gift to Denison, Texas.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love Chief Gudgel, and it was so funny because my first time I met him was at a board meeting. So he was like, I'm the the police chief and very professional, and me, I'm just a goofy, silly guy. I just like to have fun. And so then the next time I saw him was like a month later, and it was at the 4th of July event at Munson Stadium. And he came up and he gave me like the biggest hug, like we were best friends. And I was like, we are going to be best friends, Chief Gudgel. It's going to happen. But Coach,
that's him. That's Mike.
Yeah, I love him to death. Well, Coach, we're so excited to have you in Denison. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for being so accommodating to our broadcast crew, and then also us here at Katy Country. And we're looking forward to the first game, August 27th. That game that's happening with that team
south.
Yeah, the team down south. So
15 days, guys. 15 days.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And before I let everybody go that is watching us, just a reminder, Denison Yellow Jacket football on Katy Country. We got Lynn Burkhead, Ed Meacham. Everybody's going to be here talking about Yellow Jacket football. And remember, 931kmkt.com. You can listen to us on our website, the TuneIn, the iHeart, the Odyssey app, and of course, tell Siri, hey, play 93.1 Katy Country, and Siri and Siri's trying to do that right now on my phone, and then also Alexa will do the same thing. All right, y'all have a good one. We'll see you later.